Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. It's Mrs. Lewis, your librarian at Whitehall Copley Middle School, and I am here making a video because I realized it's day 5 of quarantine, day 7, I guess, if you want to count the weekend. Oh wow, you guys have been off even longer. That's right, you've been off Thursday and Friday. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going crazy, like very much so. And to be perfectly honest, I really miss you. I miss your faces in the hallway, okay? I miss you guys coming into the library and talking to me and asking for book recommendations. I miss you, and I miss doing my job. So I thought that making some videos with some book recommendations, basically bringing the library to you, would be something really fun, right? So you will get great book recommendations from your fabulous librarian, and I get to do my job, which I really, really miss. So, I hope that you are well. I hope that you're able to do social distancing without too many problems. In our house, it's been me and my kids. My husband, as of today, is also home, which is going to be very interesting. So we have a lot of things planned as far as activities go. We've been playing outside a lot in our yard. But, it is tough not seeing people. So I miss your faces. I don't know if you miss mine, but now you're going to get it in a video format that you can watch if you choose to. I hope you do, because I'm going to try and talk about lots of great books. Eventually, I'm also going to talk about some different resources I've been finding every day. There have been so many great things offered for free that I would definitely take advantage of. Like if you want to have something fun to do and something engaging, I'll start a list. So I also was trying to figure out what to call this video series, and so I would like some recommendations. Please feel free to send me your ideas. So far, I have come up with Lewis's Lit Library, because we know Mrs. Lewis is lit. What? And then, or Mrs. Lewis Presents, right? I think it's we'll see. You guys tell me what you think, though. Okay. So, though, I appreciate cheese. So the cheesier, the better. I am surviving on lots of coffee or tea. So this is my really great mug. It's still very hot. Ouch. And I even made scones yesterday, which are not very easy to make. At least make them correctly. So I have a chocolate chip and peanut butter scone waiting for me when I'm done with this video. So I hope you can sit back and relax while I recommend to you our very first book for this video series. This book, if you have come to the library or you've had library class with me already, you might have heard of it. It is one of my favorite books. I talk about it pretty often. It is available for Sora, so make sure that you are utilizing your free Sora account that I have created for you. If you're not sure how to access it, it is in the lesson repository that the middle school has set up. I put the doc right there so that you guys can access it. And it's also an app on your phone or your device. So I listen to Sora almost every single day on my phone. And so the book I'm about to show you is available on Sora as well, or Overdrive if you have a regular public library card. Okay, so our first book for our book talk is Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. It's a little spooky. Okay, now this is my personal copy. Okay, normally I try to show you guys what it looks like in the library, what the stickers are, what genre it is shelved in, but I didn't really have time to grab a ton of things, so I'm just going to kind of show you what I have in my personal library, and that's a lot of books, which another day I'll be showing you, but right now it's kind of a hot mess, so I'm going to try and clean that up a little bit for you guys. So The Graveyard Book, there we go, is a book that in the library you do not need a YA permission slip to read. Neil Gaiman is a really awesome author. He writes for children, he writes for adults, he writes lots of things. But all of his books have a very common denominator in that there is some kind of magic. Sometimes it's the magic of the ordinary, right? Like those little things every day that you can look at and appreciate and just say, wow, like nature's really cool, or the world is really cool. In other times, very much like this book, it's legit magic. Okay, so this is found in our, there we go. It's in our fantasy section of the library. Here we go. I'll hold it on this side. It's in our fantasy section of the library. And this takes place in a quasi-modern time, meaning like it's not really set in a specific time period, but you can recognize it as having some modern amenities, cars, the way they dress, things like that. Disposable diapers, yes. So it definitely takes place in a more modern time, like late 1900s, maybe early 2000s. And so in this book, there is a boy who he escapes a murderer. So the murderer kills his entire family, his parents and his older sister, and he escapes that event. The murderer can't find him. So he leaves him be. Figures that problem will solve itself. He was a baby when it happened. Problem solved. Nature will take care of that. What he doesn't realize is that the little boy wandered away from a crime scene into a cemetery. The ghosts could see the other ghosts of his family, recently deceased, and the ghosts of the cemetery decide to raise the little boy as their own. And what ends up happening, I won't give you like spoilers, but where the magic happens is the murderer has a very keen sense of smell. So keen means sharp, right? The murderer has a very keen sense of smell, and that's how he finds and identifies his victims. So he lost the trail of the little boy when he went into the graveyard. The little boy gets raised by the ghost for 13 years. And after 13 years, as most middle schoolers would, because he's about a middle schooler's age, they were like, he wants to see what's outside the graveyard. What is around there? So he leaves the graveyard. And across the world, Jack, our murderer, his nose pricks. And he says, I haven't smelled that smell in 13 years. That's the one that got away. So this boy leaves his safe haven and is now being hunted again. So it's a little spooky, but not overly scary. But it's a very good book. So I'll read a couple pages of it so that you get to see what the first few pages are like. If it's something you're interested in, then definitely go find it on Sora, okay? Or if it's one that you have at home, you can do that. At this point, I'm not sure what bookstores are still open. I think Let's Play Books in Emmaus possibly will do like let you place an order over the phone and then walk it out to your car when you go to pick it up with your parents. So there's lots of different options. And like I said, I'm hoping I'll be able to share some resources with you guys. Otherwise, you can always write it down and keep it on your TBR list, your to be read list. Mine is ridiculously long. And you can come back to the library when school is open again, and you can be like, Mrs. Lewis, I loved your video. I want to borrow this book. And I will happily lend it to you. So let's read the beginning of the Graveyard Book. So it has some illustration, by the way. Chapter 1, How Nobody Came to the Graveyard. There was a hand in the dark, and it held a knife. The knife had a handle of polished black bone, and a blade finer and sharper than any razor. If it sliced you, you might not even know you had been cut, not immediately. The knife had done almost everything it was brought to that house to do, and both the blade and the handle were wet. The street door was still open, just a little, where the knife and the man who held it had slipped in, and wisps of nighttime mist slithered and twined into the house through the open door. The man Jack paused on the landing. With his left hand, he pulled a large white handkerchief from the pocket of his black coat, and with it he wiped off the knife in his gloved right hand, which had been holding it. Then he put the handkerchief away. The hunt was almost over. He had left the woman in her bed, the man on the bedroom floor, the older child in her brightly colored bedroom, surrounded by toys and half-finished models. That only left the little one, a baby, barely a toddler, to take care of. One more, and his task would be done. He flexed his fingers. The man Jack was, above all things, a professional, or so he told himself, and he would not allow himself to smile until the job was complete. His hair was dark, and his eyes were dark, and he wore black leather gloves, of the thinnest lambskin. The toddler's room was at the very top of the house. The man Jack walked up the stairs, his feet silent on the carpeting. Then he pushed open the attic door, and he walked in. His shoes were black leather, and they were polished to such a shine that they looked like dark mirrors. You could see the moon reflected in them, tiny and half full. The real moon shone through the casement window. Its light was not bright, and it was diffused by the mist, but the man Jack would not need much light. The moonlight was enough. It would do. He could make out the shape of the child in the crib, head and limbs and torso. The crib had high, slatted sides to prevent the child from getting out. Jack leaned over, raised his right hand, the one holding the knife, and he aimed for the chest, and then he lowered his hand. The shape in the crib was a teddy bear. There was no child. The man Jack's eyes were accustomed to the dim moonlight, so he had no desire to turn on an electric light. And light was not that important after all. He had other skills. The man Jack sniffed the air. He ignored the scents that had come into the room with him, dismissed the scents that he could safely ignore, honed in on the smell of the thing he had come to find. He could smell the child, a milky smell like chocolate chip cookies, and the sour tang of a wet, disposable nighttime diaper. He could smell the baby shampoo in its hair, and something small and rubbery. A toy, he thought, and then, no, something to suck that the child had been carrying. My daughter calls that her nutzer. The child had been here, but it was here no longer. The man Jack followed his nose down the stairs through the middle of the tall, thin house. He inspected the bathroom, the kitchen, the airing cupboard, and finally, the downstairs hall, in which there was nothing to be seen but the family's bicycles, a pile of empty shopping bags, a fallen diaper, and the stray tendrils of fog that had insinuated themselves into the hall from the open door to the street. The man Jack made a small noise then, a grunt that contained in it both frustration and also satisfaction. He slipped the knife into its sheath in the inside pocket of his long coat and stepped out into the street. There was moonlight and streetlights, but the fog stifled everything, muted light and muffled sound, and made the night shadowy and treacherous. He looked down the hill towards the light of the closed shops, then up the street, where the last high houses wound up the hill on their way to the darkness of the old graveyard. The man Jack sniffed the air. Then, without hurrying, he began to walk up the hill. Ever since the child had learned to walk, he had been his mother's and father's despair and delight, for there never was such a boy for wandering, for climbing up things, for getting into and out of things. That night, he had been woken by the sound of something on the floor beneath him falling with a crash. Awake, he soon became bored and had begun looking for a way out of his crib. It had high sides, like the walls of his playpen downstairs, but he was convinced he could scale it. All he needed was a step. He pulled his large golden teddy bear into the corner of the crib. Then, holding the railing in his tiny hands, he put his foot into the bear's lap, the other foot up on the bear's head, and pulled himself up into a standing position, and then half climbed, half toppled over the railing and out of the crib. He landed with a muffled thump on a small mound of furry, fuzzy toys, some of them presents from relations for his first birthday, not 6 months gone, some of them inherited from his older sister. He was surprised when he hit the floor, but he did not cry out. If you cried, they came and put you back in your crib. He crawled out of the room. So, I'm going to stop there. That's like 5-6 pages into the first chapter. It's almost done with the first chapter at that point. So I really hope that you enjoyed our first book talk here. I can't wait to do more for you. Send me an email, lewisn@whitehallcopley.org, if you have ideas of things that you want me to talk about, or books that you would like me to share, or questions that you may have. I am more than happy to help you guys out. All right, so stay strong, wash your hands, and be Zephyr tough.